Breaking news coming out in the last 30 minutes that Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith proposes to dismiss the January 6th case against Donald Trump. You can see this coming out just in the last 30 minutes. So some huge news that this is dismissed. And I'm going to share with you the video footage on this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that this is the right move for them to dismiss all of these cases that were posed against Donald Trump? If you think so, put a 1. If you think no, put a 2. But I'm going to share with you the latest video footage that is coming out left and right on this. And this breaking news coming out saying that Donald Trump, there was no election interference on January 6th that he is going to be charged for now. So this is some pretty big news. So let's go ahead and take a look. I've got tons of video footage coming out left and right on this. And just take a look at this clip really quick so you can hear what they have to say as they're saying this is gone forever. Take a look at this with me really quick.
Literally just happened, so we're just getting or printing copies of it. But I think before we get into the details of what's actually in it, I want to ask you the question that most people have. Is this case thus dead forever?
Yes.
There you have it. She said, yes, this case is now dead forever. So, man, this is huge news. All of that stuff that has been chasing Donald Trump since January 6th unfolded, they are now saying it will be following him no longer. So let's go ahead and get to the video footage. And again, if you appreciate the updates, don't forget, take a quick second, hit the like button, subscribe to stay up to date. It is totally free. And let me know your thoughts. I'm seeing the ones coming in, people saying, yes, this is the right thing. This needs to be done. Let's go ahead and take a look at it so you can see it for yourself. Let's take a look at this video footage.
Good afternoon. I'm Diane Macedo. We're coming on the air because ABC News has learned Special Counsel Jack Smith is officially moving to drop the January 6th election interference case against President-elect Trump. He's also expected to move to dismiss the classified documents case against Trump, possibly as early as today. Smith charged Trump last year with plotting to overturn the 2020 election and illegally storing classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate. But the Department of Justice had signaled it will not prosecute a sitting president, and Jack Smith has said he plans to step down as special counsel before Trump takes office. During the campaign, Trump also said he would fire Smith and his entire team upon returning to the White House. Let's get right to ABC senior reporter Catherine Falders. Catherine, what's the latest?
So we've been reporting, of course, that Special Counsel Jack Smith was looking at the mechanisms in which he could wind down these two federal cases, the January 6th one and the classified documents one. So today, what we're learning through a filing that has just come out and posted on the court's docket, Diane, is that Jack Smith is asking the judge in a motion to dismiss, to essentially dismiss the case, that they are going to throw out this case. It's important to point out that Trump was facing 4 counts total here of conspiracy and obstruction. Now, they re-indicted him. They issued a superseding indictment, if you will, back in August after the Supreme Court ruled that Trump was essentially protected of those acts that they found official. So this was the August indictment with 4 counts he was facing. But what's important here is the special counsel signaled through court filings that they were going to consult with DOJ, with the Office of Legal Counsel within DOJ, to figure out and assess how they could move forward with both of these cases, given that Trump won the election. Now, they say here that through that consultation, that they believed that after careful consideration, and I want to read this, the department determined, DOJ determined, that prior opinions concerning the Constitution's prohibition on federal indictment and prosecution of a sitting president apply to this situation, given that Trump is president-elect. They said that the department believed that this case must be dismissed prior to the inauguration. Now, it's important to point out here that the special counsel is not saying that they don't believe that Trump committed these alleged offenses. In fact, they go out of their way to state that in this 6-page filing. They say, the special counsel does, that prohibition, so the prohibition not to charge a sitting president or a president-elect, that prohibition is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution, which the government stands fully behind. But the reality of this is they're asking the judge in this motion to dismiss to toss out the case. They're saying that they still believe the gravity of these charges. The question is, in terms of what's next, what do we see from the special counsel? We know that under special counsel regulations, the special counsel issues a report when their case is closed. So how soon can we see that report? Is it drafted? It has to go through a classification review. That could take weeks. So are they up against the clock here, and do they release something publicly in report form before the inauguration?
There you have it, you guys. Man, now we're hearing that this was also coming as Trump was saying that when he was elected as president, he was going to be firing the entire team. That is right, saying that all of Jack Smith's team that was trying to prosecute him over the past 4 years, they would all be fired. So let me know your thoughts. Donald Trump busting out the "you're fired" coming here. Do you think that that had something to do with it? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Take a look at this video footage.
The Washington Post reports that President-elect Trump plans to fire the entire team that worked under Special Counsel Jack Smith at the Justice Department. Those DOJ employees worked on 2 federal prosecutions against the incoming president. The report adds that Trump is planning to assemble teams within the department to investigate alleged fraud in the 2020 election. Let's work on unpacking some of this as we move forward. More on the President-elect Trump's plans for the Justice Department in particular. We are joined by former federal prosecutor Andrew Turkowski. Thank you so much for giving us a little time on this Saturday afternoon, Andrew. We greatly appreciate it. Kicking things off with just the first start, the idea that an entire team might be fired. Now, it's not unusual for an incoming president, incoming administration to bring in new people, new teams, particularly when legal concerns are made, AGs all across the nation. Your thoughts on this particular headline?
Well, when you look at the people who worked under Jack Smith, you have to think about the credibility of the actions that they brought. First, we have an election that just strongly communicated that the American public vehemently disagrees with what Jack Smith had done over the last 4 years. But then you have to look at the fact that these attorneys working under Jack Smith were pushing a novel legal issue that failed at almost every turn, to include as it went up to the Supreme Court. So if those are the attorneys that were working there, does Donald Trump really want those attorneys to continue in the DOJ? And so I think it's absolutely appropriate to be thinking about and talking about the idea that those folks may be well suited to leave the DOJ. We're not talking criminal prosecutions of those folks, but I think the idea of seeing them out the door is probably wise.
And now shifting gears just a little bit to the AG pick, Pam Bondi. This is a big pick, a Trump loyalist, someone that he has a lot of confidence in, as one would expect. But there's also some criticism coming down. Here's Ellie Honig. She is the former assistant U.S. attorney out of the Southern District of New York, talking about Bondi's pick.
There's nothing wrong or unusual with an attorney general who shares the same politics and ideology as the president. That's the way these things work. But I think the big problem with Pam Bondi is
I want to bring in NBC's justice reporter, Ryan Riley. Christy Greenberg served as deputy chief for the SDNY Criminal Division. She is a former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Paul Butler is a former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst. Lisa Rubin is an MSNBC legal correspondent. Thanks to all of you for scrambling here. Ryan, give us the latest.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read directly from this filing here. This was something that I think was widely expected, that Jack Smith's team was going to file to dismiss these charges. And let me quote from the document here. After careful consideration, the department has determined that OLC, meaning the Office of Legal Counsel within the Justice Department, has their prior opinions concerning the Constitution's prohibition on federal indictment and prosecution of a sitting president apply to this situation, and that as a result, this prosecution must be dismissed before the defendant is inaugurated. That prohibition is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution, which the government stands fully behind. Based on the department's interpretation of the Constitution, the government moves for dismissal without prejudice of the superseding indictment. The government has conferred with defense counsel, who does not object to this motion. So basically what they're saying is that we had a really solid case here, and we would have gotten this over the finish line but for Donald Trump being elected president and inaugurated. But now they are banned from moving that prosecution forward. So I think pretty strong words from Jack Smith's office there, standing fully behind what they have alleged against the incoming president of the United States, saying that that would have been a very strong case. And obviously, you know, they wouldn't have brought it to indictment if they didn't think that they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of Donald Trump's peers that he had indeed committed 4 felonies during his effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election, which all led up to the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol. Chris.
Okay, Lisa Rubin, I think you're reading it on your phone. This literally just happened, so we're just getting or printing copies of it. But I think before we get into the details of what's actually in it, I want to ask you the question that most people have. Is this case thus dead forever?
Yes.
It's done.
It's done. And in particular, they're asking, well, let me give a caveat to that, because the last sentence says the government respectfully moves under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 48A for a dismissal without prejudice of the superseding indictment. So let me try and translate that.
Please.
A dismissal with prejudice means you are dismissing the case and you cannot bring those same charges again. A dismissal without prejudice leaves the door open to charges. However, the charges that were brought here, Chris, unless I'm not calculating it correctly, many of them, if not all of them, would reach a statute of limitations during the Trump presidency that is about to come. So when they are saying that they are moving for a dismissal without prejudice, yes, the Department of Justice seems to be leaving a door open for itself, but I'm not sure that's a door that they can open again after the conclusion of this presidency.
I want to play part of what Jack Smith said last year, just to remind folks, after he filed these charges against Donald Trump.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people. They defended the very institutions and principles that define the United States. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues.
So, Christy, tough question, I think, because it's both legal and sort of big picture philosophical. Understanding that Jack Smith very much wanted and pushed to defend the Constitution of the United States, defend free and fair elections in the way that they are laid out in our democracy, and understanding the vested interest the American people have in that, and the very personal interest the folks he just talked about, the people who tried to defend and defended the Capitol on January 6th have. Did he have no other choice?
I think, in effect, that's right. I mean, if he had continued up until Donald Trump's office, essentially the new AG would seek to do this exact thing, dismiss the case. So in order, I think, to conserve resources, it made sense for him to do what he's done. But just an additional point to what you and Lisa were just discussing. So in this motion, Jack Smith says that, yes, the Constitution requires dismissal in this context, consistent with the temporary nature of immunity afforded a sitting president. It doesn't require dismissal with prejudice, and then goes on to say immunity from prosecution for a sitting president would not preclude such prosecution once the president's term is over, or he is otherwise removed from office by regulation or impeachment. So there is a possibility here that potentially he could be prosecuted down the line. There's a real question whether or not the statute of limitations would be told, because he actually cannot be prosecuted for this period of time. But the real question for me will be whether or not, when the new AG comes in, it's not clear if Judge Chutkan will actually rule on this motion right away, or if she will wait for the new AG, who may take a different position and may say this should be dismissed with prejudice, meaning then it's completely over. There's no way to bring this back after he is done with his term. I would expect that the new AG would have a different take on this and would want this completely gone. The fact that Jack Smith kind of left the window open here, I think, is interesting. It's also interesting to me that I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that this is unopposed. This motion is unopposed by Donald Trump's counsel. And that's significant because his counsel is going to be the number 2 and number 3 at DOJ, assuming that, at least with respect to Todd Blanche, that he's confirmed. So the fact that they haven't opposed this, I think, is interesting as well. Maybe it suggests that they're comfortable leaving this window open because they really don't think there's any way this could ever be resuscitated after his term is over.
Lisa, I want you to pick up on that because reading this with my eyes, not a lawyer's eyes, but on the first page, he comes to the conclusion that the department, meaning DOJ, has determined that OLC, that's their Office of Legal Counsel, prior opinions concerning the Constitution's prohibition on federal indictment and prosecution of a sitting president apply to this situation, and that as a result, this prosecution must be dismissed before the defendant is inaugurated.
That's an interesting question that they've come to that conclusion. I think one of the other reasons, Chris, that they're coming to that conclusion has to do with the interplay between this case and the special counsel regulations. Special counsel regulations say at the conclusion of the special counsel's work, they are to deliver a report to the Attorney General. We're all familiar with what those reports look like, be it from Robert Hur or from Robert Mueller, who earlier investigated this same president. But usually those reports are generated when the investigation and the prosecutions come to a close. It may be that one of the reasons they reach that determination is that until and unless these cases are over, Jack Smith doesn't feel comfortable releasing the reports in compliance with those regulations, and he very much wants to release those reports before he leaves. Why does he want to do that? Because he understands that on January 20th at noon, if he has not resigned and released the reports by then, the new administration has no interest either in letting him continue his work because the Attorney General can fire him. And if the report's not out, they can ensure that it never sees the light of day because, again, it's up to the Attorney General whether to release Jack Smith's report, which we understand is likely information, to the public.
Okay, Paul, so I want to get your overall reaction to this, but also I want to remind people that the indictment mentions 6 unnamed co-conspirators. So the question also remains what happens there, but give us your take.
Well, since the co-conspirators were unindicted, they haven't formally been charged with their crime. So presumably investigations and prosecutions of them could continue. But look, with regard to Donald Trump, make no mistake, Donald Trump won. He beat his case with an assist from the Supreme Court of the United States. And it's possible that the case will be dismissed without prejudice, meaning that if it overcomes statute of limitation concerns, it might be brought again in the future after Trump leaves office. But Chris, here's what I think is likely to happen. Donald Trump can pardon himself while he's in office. Can a president pardon himself is a question that the Supreme Court has never answered. The Constitution gives the president broad pardon powers, and we know how friendly the Supreme Court is to the power of the executive, including the president. So I would expect that at some point in the next 4 years, either early in his term or on the last day, one of Donald Trump's pardons will be to himself, thus setting up yet another Supreme Court case regarding Donald Trump.
All right, so let's get back to this. Breaking news. Special counsel Jack Smith asking the judge to dismiss Trump's D.C. case. I want to bring in Congressman Darrell Issa on this. Great to have you on the program, sir. Always appreciate your insight. 4 felony charges here. This was with respect to Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. It resulted in what we saw at the Capitol on January 6th. He's filing a motion now to dismiss. Obviously, we're watching a barrage of cases and what judges and prosecutors are willing to do, as he is now the president-elect and in January will be inaugurated.
Well, you're exactly right. With the exception of New York, where they're never going to give up and they want to know if they could, shoot him after he's in the grave 20 years from now, if necessary. The rest are using the common sense. The Supreme Court has spoken loud and clear that his actions as president are not open to that in the past or in the future. You understand, Smith is only dismissing that which he was going to lose if he went to court with anyway.
Yeah, that's the big point, Congressman. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, the Supreme Court basically said to him, lose the case. I mean, you're be done with the case, dismiss the case. You're going to lose it. We've made the ruling on this. And then he tried to change it a little bit so he could sort of, I don't know, sneak it in under the door or something. Obviously, that was not going to work. So to me, is this a question of, look, the law has finally hit him, or is it the case that he has just seen definitively through what happened in the election, America has said, stop it with all this lawfare, put it to rest, we've elected our president?
You know, I think he wants to get some amount of his own credibility back by acting like he's actually following the law. But he didn't follow the law. He abused the law. This series of events over 4 years is the reason that the House of Representatives has a committee on the weaponization of government. And that committee is headed by Jim Jordan, is not going away. We're going to have to continue to dig deep into the weaponization. Even at the State Department, we're going to have to dig into it, where, they're in mourning because their candidate didn't win.
Yeah.
Do you think there's enough digging into that where then these cases are done? Or should Trump be awaiting 2028 when he's no longer the sitting president for these cases to then come back to him?
Well, Trump, his attorney general, and the Congress all have a requirement, and that is over the next 4 years to end once and for all the ability of the federal or even local governments to weaponize. Not to dig deep into the Constitution, but the Constitution specifically had a clause in it that said that states and cities could not arrest members of Congress as they transited to and from New York and then Washington, D.C. Well, they put that in because they knew that that kind of misconduct could happen if Virginia didn't like the way Georgia was going to vote. That is true today. The only difference is we don't have a specific written part of the Constitution that makes it clear that the president enjoys those same things, that his official conduct, which includes when he opines on something or decides that something's wrong and says so, it doesn't open him up to civil suits. It doesn't open him up to criminal suits. We didn't do it to Joe Biden. We didn't do it to Jack Kennedy. We didn't do it in the past. They've done it now, and we're not going to let them do it after President Trump leaves office.
All right, Congressman, stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. We just want to get a little bit more from Lydia Hu on this.
Hi, everyone. Really great to be with you guys on this really big news. We're just getting this in, and we're getting a reaction from, Trump's transition team as well. This is coming from Stephen Chung, who's a Trump spokesperson, and also the incoming White House communications director, who is saying, quote, the American people re-elected President Trump with an overwhelming mandate to make America great again. Today's decision by the DOJ ends the unconstitutional federal cases against President Trump. And when I read those first couple of lines, it made me really reflect on this moment and the fact that these cases would likely not be dismissed had President Trump not just won that election, the incredible victory that was, for the people that support the president, but also for himself. He very likely would have still been facing these federal cases. So what this leaves us with this now, Judge Chutkan in the D.C. Circuit Court, the D.C. District Court, will now have to approve the dismissal of this case. And then we'll still have to wait to see what happens with the federal case. That's the documents case that's still unfolding. We're hearing from our colleagues over on the Fox News channel that we do expect a similar motion to be made to dismiss that case as well, which then is just the chipping away of the lawfare. And of course, then what leaves us with is the Manhattan case, this New York City case, which we're still waiting to see how Judge Merchan is going to deal with that.
How many more stays can he take? But it strikes me that the judge, with Jack Smith making the request, that I would be very surprised if the judge doesn't acquiesce Yes, Lydia, thank you for that. Congressman, I want to come back to you because we also have found out who, well, after Gaetz stepped down, that Pam Bondi would be the next Attorney General pick. And Merrick Garland and the DOJ have been under such fire because of this weaponization that we were just talking about a little bit earlier. And it was really interesting to me because on MSNBC, you had one of the guests having a complete meltdown, and it was of epic proportions because of how qualified she actually is. So how does she get in there and try to clean some of this up?
Well, she's going to have an army of deputies because it's more than one person can do. She is somebody who understands how to run a large bureaucracy. She understands the law. She's worked with the federal government. She understands the various elements of DOJ that have been weaponized. And so she's going to have one after another appointments. Some of them need confirmed, some don't. And then she's going to have to root out some of the people that are, they call them career, but they're the embedded people who text back and forth, needing to have backup plans, needing to have insurance policies if Trump gets elected. She's going to have to find them. And if she can't fire them, she's going to have to move them where they can't do the harm that they've been doing.
There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith proposes to dismiss the January 6th case against Donald Trump. Huge breaking news coming out. And if you appreciate it and you are glad to hear this news, don't forget, take a quick second, hit that like button. Help spread this out further so more people can get the latest breaking news. This just came out about 30 minutes ago. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? I'll keep you up to speed on everything. And stay tuned to the channel because there are a lot of updates coming out right now, and I will keep you up to speed on everything. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, and read right from it so you know what's the latest. This article linked down in the description below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for all the super chats and support. God bless. Take care. Catch you in the next video. This is Steve.